Hi, I'm David Levin, and this is Pop Goes the Culture. So here's something I'll bet you didn't know, something that never gets advertised. Nearly every new container of milk contains a free Star Trek toy. It's true. I'll show you later at the end of the show. In the meantime, we've got the second part of my conversation with the great Christopher Lloyd. Lloyd is one of the best character actors of our time, imbuing his parts with a kind of manic zaniness that few others can match. But in real life, he's kind of quiet, maybe even a little shy. He doesn't do a lot of interviews, but as he warmed up during our conversation, things got really fun. Today, we'll talk about working with Mel Brooks, what it was like to kill Captain Kirk's son and destroy the Starship Enterprise, and of course, some more about Reverend Jim and the great Andy Kaufman. The writing for that character was sensational.
The writing for the show was fabulous. I mean, a great team of writers. Charles Brothers and David Lloyd. I apologize for all the ones whose names I don't remember, Jim Brooks. But it was a great writing team. Great writing team.
The one that stands out, obviously, and I talked to Jeff Conaway about that, was tell the story of when Jim went to go get his license, if you would, for people who might not have seen that episode.
Well, when Jim went, the episode, Jim goes to get his license. That was my first episode as a regular, and they wrote the episode to explain. I had to be a taxi driver, and so I had to get a driver's license. And the cast took me to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get me through the process. It was kind of, problematic the whole way. And so I'm taking the rider's test, sitting down, and I come to a question, and I asked Jeff Conaway, who's kind of sotto voce, what does a yellow light mean? And he says, slow down. So then I go, what does, and this did that about 3 or 4 times. But what really amazed me about that is every once in a while on the show, after the dress camera tech run through Friday afternoon, we'd break, have for dinner, and come back and do the show with a live audience. And every once in a while, there'd be some problem that they could not solve in the writing. It's like they needed something just wasn't working. And the clock is ticking, and everybody's all that pressure and energy, and everybody would be trying to find how to put the button on this scene or whatever like that. And that was the situation with that moment. They did not have an ending to this scene. And I'm sitting there, it's my first show, and I'm feeling still very much like a fish out of water. This is like a whole new thing going on around me. And they can't find a way to end the scene. And they tried this, and they tried that, and say this, say that. And finally someone said, what does a yellow light mean? And it was like genius, and I remember another occasion, and everybody, the lighting man up in the rafters, costumes, whoever could find, it didn't matter, which was a great spirit. A great thing about that show is that everybody loved it who worked on it, no matter what they were doing, and everybody helped. But I had another episode when I was the bar. There's a bar next door. I forget the name. It had a name. Anyway, and they often have scenes at the bar. It's like some tavern and Italian place around the corner from there. And we were all in there once. I was sitting at the bar, and the bartender, there was 4 or 5 other folks sitting in the bar, and the bartender, how did it go? I forget but he'd serve a beer, and then he'd slide it down the bar. And I had ordered a beer, and I'm kind of in my mode. He slides it down the bar, and it goes right past me and falls into the waste paper basket at the end of the bar. And and I asked the guy next to me, I said, sorry, did a beer just go by? And he says, yeah. And I say, it's time to cut myself off or something like that, and I leave. You know, what would be, it's time to whatever. But you know, when beers are going by and I don't get them, it's time to go home.
It's time to go home.
But that was an ending that they thought of in one of those situations where everybody has to break for dinner and come back and do the show, and nobody can find an ending to the scene, and then you know, writers say, okay, try this, bingo. You know.
I heard that the laugh for what does the yellow light mean set some sort of sitcom record. Nice laugh.
Maybe.
How long did that go on for? Do you remember?
I think maybe, I don't know, 4 times maybe. Each time got slower and slower. It was amazing.
The best moment was though you're doing it in the middle of reading the question slowly. You check to make sure. You check to make sure you were getting it right. What does? You couldn't even remember it to finish.
Yeah. Oh, funny.
I bet. There was some great. You had a great cast there. I mean, your co-stars were just amazing.
Amazing.
Sort of walk me through each one of them, and like my assumption is obviously that they're great, but if there's like a memory or a story about any of them that's as we.
Well, I remember, you know, I had did all these classes, you know, in New York City, being totally theater oriented for so long, often going to classes because I didn't have work, and at least in class you feel like in some way you're functioning as an actor, you know. But I took all these classes, and always the big thing in the theater was an ensemble, to create an ensemble, you know, balanced group that complement one another, and all of them do wonderful work. And I used to, on the set of Taxi for a while, I look like and say, this is an incredible ensemble, you know. Amazing. The spirit and the trust and the sheer joy of working together was just, and the talent. It was just a fabulous group of actors and actresses.
With Judd Hirsch?
Judd Hirsch. I don't know. See, I don't know what to say about each and every one of them.
We can come back. Well, let's talk about the one that everybody seems to talk about, and the one who brought you all together years later was Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. A lot of like the movie. I forget the movie that Man on the Moon. A lot of those incidents in that movie occurred before I came on the show. We used to get together sometimes. I remember he invited me to come to his wrestling and a couple of other things. He's a paradox. He's just extraordinary, amazing. I remember like one time the show was ready to begin, and he was nowhere to be found until somebody spotted him meditating in his car in the parking lot. I remember he got Tony Danza so pissed. One day, Tony took a fire extinguisher and foamed him to his dressing room and blasted foam all. He could be, but he was very canny. I mean, he knew. I always felt that he knew very well what he was doing and how he was doing it. You know,
just how far to push. Just how far to push it.
Just how far to push it, but he knew it wasn't. He knew how to work it. He was and he worked. He did his thing, and and he was great at it. But it was like a lot of people. I guess I say that because often people will ask me about him and ask him, was he nuts or was he, and I don't think he was nuts. I think he had a different way of looking at things, but he was very aware and very knew what he was doing.
What was it like getting back together? First of all, to work with Milos Forman again.
Yeah.
To work with your taxi.
It was amazing because it was. I think that sequence was about a week. We did the show at Paramount, and they built a replica of the set at Universal, or was it Warner's? I don't remember. It's down to the last scratch. It was like on the woodwork. Everything was identical. So that was kind of uncanny. And then we're all there, looking a little bit older, but suddenly, it was an extraordinary experience.
Kind of like getting to do your final episode years later.
Yeah, it was interesting.
What was your take on Jim Carrey as Andy?
I thought it was amazing because he not only looked like Andy, but he had the Andy Kaufman's presence in his eyes. It was in his eyes. It was in his in his soul.
Yeah.
It was quite extraordinary.
He never broke character, I heard.
That may be true. Yeah. Yeah.
And getting together with the castmates again was it like?
And with Milos. Yeah.
What did Milos say to you when you came back on set?
I don't know. I remember we shook hands, something like that. Because Milos had done Cuckoo's Nest with Danny and Vince Cavelli. It was just one of those weird things.
And Danny was producing.
That's right, yeah.
Awesome. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing opportunity. So Taxi sort of had a stay of execution. ABC canceled, and then you guys moved over to NBC. Do you remember that period?
Yeah.
What that was like?
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing to be canceled. But I think the show required another season of episodes to qualify for syndication. And home box office or PBS, some channel, I think, made an offer to do 12 one-hour episodes and much more open, much less censorship. Mm-hmm. But it had to be unanimously, maybe you don't know about that, approved. And I think all the cast said yes, but there was something. And then NBC came along. So was it NBC?
NBC.
Yeah, NBC came along, and the rest is history.
Mary Lou told us she was the one she was the holdout who said no.
Oh yeah?
Because Jim Brooks said to her, if we go on HBO, the first thing they're going to do is make you take your top off. And she said, okay, I'm not doing it.
That's funny. Huh.
So, but that turned into a real opportunity for you. You started doing movie after movie, it seems.
Yeah, that really opened things up. Yeah.
What were some of the early ones that you did? Do you remember?
I don't know. There was one of the Star Wars.
You did the Star Trek. You did
Star Trek.
You did Klingon.
Yeah.
What was it like playing a Klingon? What made you accept the part of a Klingon?
Well, I was honored that Leonard Nimoy was, wanted me to do the part. How could you turn that down? And then I've always liked, the Klingon. He was just so deliciously evil. He was like had no conscience. He was just a destructive person, and without any apology, and and it made it a lot of fun. And then, of course, all the makeup and the look and, do all this crazy stuff with language. They actually had a Klingon language. They had a linguist, philologist, or whatever, make up a Klingon language with vocabulary, verbs, nouns, grammar. It was a book. It was like a published book. So it wasn't just they didn't make up sounds. Eventually, they developed an entire language, Klingonese. I loved doing it. And then, huh?
Did you have to learn the language, or just phonetically learn those couple of words?
I learned whatever sentences or words I had, the pronunciation.
So you don't speak Klingon?
No, I haven't had much use for it since then, unfortunately.
Did you ever go to one of the Star Trek conventions or any of those things?
No, I was never a big Trekkie. I mean, I love watching the movies and everything, but I didn't get heavily into it.
So you got to kill Captain Kirk's son.
Yeah.
So you really...
And I also destroyed the original Starship Enterprise.
Yeah.
Blew it up. Blew them right up.
Do people ever sort of you did like these two major sort of, Star Trek and the history of Star Trek.
Right.
Okay, forgive me, my inner geek is coming out now. But in the history of Star Trek, that's pretty significant to have blown up the Enterprise and killed Kirk's son.
Yeah,
I mean, the pantheon of Star Trek villains, you're pretty high up there.
I know. I make no apology.
Never brought to trial.
No, I got toasted. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So did that give you a taste for the science fiction stuff? Is that what?
Yeah, I've never tried to steer my career in any particular direction, but it takes kind of a trajectory all on its own.
Had a small, fun part in To Be or Not to Be.
Oh, that was delicious as well. I love that. Charles Durning and Anne Bancroft and Mel Brooks. I mean, how could you go wrong? Great, and I loved playing that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Big old stupid Nazi.
Yeah.
Had you seen the original Jack Benny movie originally?
I may have looked at it back then. Yeah, I'm not sure.
What was Brooks like to work with?
It was fabulous. And to see him and his lady together on the set, I mean, what a couple. I mean, what a couple. But I love the way, Mel Brooks, right on the dot, if lunch break finished at 1 o'clock, he was like a torpedo coming out of his van and to work. I mean, disciplined and great sense of humor, a lot of laughs. And Anne Bancroft.
Beautiful.
And we had a short scene. It's like treasure it forever.
Did he have? Now you've worked with some really top directors. At that point you'd worked with many, but what was Mel Brooks like as a director? Because on screen, he's a crazy guy, but was he different as a director?
Well, the craze is always there, but he knows what he's doing, and the energy and the enthusiasm and the excitement. I mean, he's just so excited about what he's doing, which is it's contagious. If everybody picks up on it, and always great humor. I mean, he's that humor. That humor sees so much, even when he's trying to work seriously. The dance, as I remember, I haven't seen it for a long time. There's a dance he and Anne Bancroft is just heaven. It's the love between them as the characters and as in real life. It's just one of the most beautiful sequences. Yeah. Just wonderful. But no, he just has so much energy and so intelligent and grasps ironies all over the place and spouts out he's just great. But he's like he knows what he's at.
That's all we've got time for today. In part 3 of my talk with Christopher Lloyd, we'll finally get to talk about Back to the Future, a movie that, believe it or not, he didn't even want to do at first. It's true. Oh, I promised to show you the thing about milk containers and the free Star Trek toy. Okay, here's what you do. This is a new bottle of milk. It's got one of those ring things. Pull off the tab, do 1 or 2 simple twists, and ta-da! Dun, 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 the Starship Enterprise free toy. Well, what do you expect for free? See you next time.